All right, welcome into Sports Bit Betting Insight today. Paulie and Teddy, weekend preview edition. Vacation next week. Don't panic, we're off for a week. When we return, it's football season. Deep dive is going to be football. We'll touch on the Hall of Fame game and a little bit on the preseason, and a good tweet by SBR Picks. That we'll mention as well. Big game breakdown is always coming up. Bad beats, bad bets. How about some bad bets? They were betting the Brewers under here. A reaction to the lineup. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, we see this story just about every getaway day. Every time we got early start games, you guys see guys sit. And the Brewers sat LaCroix, and they sat Braun. And boy, the markets got excited. Oh, let's bet the under. 9, bet down to 7.5. Significant move. It wasn't a ton of base runners, only 21. But 10 of those runners came around to score. And once again, we're seeing markets showing support for a guy like Robbie Ray. You know, Diamondback starter Robbie Ray. They've done it on a consistent basis this year. Now, Ray's 5-10. He's got a 4.53 ERA. He's got only one quality start in his last 7 trips to the hill. So why on earth are the markets looking at this guy saying, yeah, we want Robbie Ray under. We want D-backs when Ray was on the hill. Well, his xFIP is a full run lower than his ERA. He's striking out 10.87 batters per 9 innings. He's been incredibly unlucky in the BABIP, the batting average in balls in play, 362, and he's giving up a whole lot of home runs that are, again, of the unlucky variety, 14.4% home runs on his fly balls. So all of those stats say Robbie Ray is supposed to be better than he is, yet he isn't. The Diamondbacks are 4-14 in their last 18 starts. But the syndicates keep betting him, Paulie. And that's a theme for today's show and a theme for summer vacation that I think is really important to talk about here. Because, again, we're going to be dark next week. This is the final show of Season 1 for SportsBet. Season 2 starts, again, a week from Monday, right with the beginning of football season. And the theme for the show for tonight, for today, it's not about bettors versus books. It's not. We always think, I'm going to beat the bookie, crush your bookie, beat your man. No. It's about individual bettors versus syndicates. Books are just a conduit who take a cut of the money flow from squares to sharps. If you know that going in, you can look for leaks. You can look for leaks in the computer models, leaks in the wise guy mindset, leaks when knowing players and watching games and handicapping, things that you and I do, Paul, and things that I'm pretty sure that most of our listening and viewing audience does, actually can give you an edge over the syndicates. It's doable, especially in the modern age. And I referenced this book earlier in the week. I'm going to reference it again. Here's your homework assignment over vacation. Conquering Risk by L.U. Feustel. In order to understand the people you're trying to beat, you have to understand their mindset. If you don't know what they're thinking, why are the syndicates making this bet? What are the sharps see in this one? This book will absolutely help you understand that mindset. And when you understand the mindset, you can see the little nuances in what you do and what we do can help you beat them. You're not trying to beat the books. You're trying to beat the markets. The syndicates control the markets. That's our theme for the show.
Yes, very good. Very good.
Woo!
Bad for the Bucks. The Rockies, this is strange. It was a day game and the start of a 4-game series and a tough spot for both teams after the night game. But the Mets were bet down from $2 to $1.60. And Familia, after he converted 52 straight save opportunities, he's blown back-to-back saves. Bad loss by the Mets.
Yeah, and this one's on Terry Collins in my mind. I don't think you put Familia back today. Not in an early start game off his first blown save after 52 consecutive conversions the previous night. He faced 5 batters. He threw 26 pitches. He only got 1 out. Not only did the Mets lose, but now Familia's pitched 3 straight days. He's not going to be available tonight. And, of course, the Mets had their chances. Bases loaded in the 7th. Nobody out.
Yep.
Couldn't get a run home. When they have a fielder's choice, a strikeout, a flyout. And that's from 1, 2, 3 in the order. It wasn't like they're facing, 6, 7, 8 or something like that. Scott Oberg shuts them down, and then Jordan Lyles, and then Carlos Estevez slams the door shut. Estevez now 7-0 in save chances since the All-Star break. And the Rockies, they're surging right now, Paulie, 7-1 their last 8 ball games.
Yep, they should. Excuse me, they should be 500. They should have swept the Orioles on the road too. So they are playing good ball. Bet the Marlins $1.80 to $2.40. That was because of Fernandez. We talked about this yesterday on Big Game Breakdown. He was 26-1 at home career. He didn't have much. Gave up 5 runs. The Cardinals rocked him.
Oh, yeah. Amadis Diaz with a home run and a double drove in 3 runs. And again, the same numbers we talked about on yesterday's show were numbers that the markets were certainly interested. You talked about that 26-1/147 at home. The twice as many strikeouts as hits, the 32-5 record in his 37 home starts. But St. Louis, no joke, minus 240 against the Cardinals, not easy to lay. And obviously, last night wasn't a good bet to lay. Marlins backers got burned.
Yes, and golf, the first round of the PGA, 2 of the big favorites. Rory McIlroy 4 over, tied for 120th, and the same score as John Daly. Think about that. And Dustin Johnson, who's been on fire this year, 7 over. He was awful. The kid was out of it 9 holes in. He's tied for 143rd. Disaster for those 2 guys. Oh.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and it's not really good for the books, too. When most of the big names are out of contention, especially early, the handle drops considerably. The books make less money. I had an opportunity to talk with Matthew Holt from Canner from CG Technology yesterday. And he was talking about, when Tiger and Phil were in their heyday, they'd write $3 million in handle on the Masters. The modern era is more like $500K. The other thing he said is that when all the golfers that everyone bet on, they're out, they don't write anything more the whole weekend. The matchups and on down the line.
Sure.
The books might make a fair bit off all the guys that people bet, but they're not maximizing revenue. They're not maximizing handle. And certainly for a book like CG Technology, that's their primary goal. Maximize handle. They worry about hold in a whole different way.
All right, training camps are here. Deep dive will be the NFL. Up next, Big Game Breakdown. Nationals, Giants, and the Orioles and the Blue Jays coming up on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.
Back on SportsBit, time for Big Game Breakdown. As always, live on sportsbookreview.com. Nationals and the Giants. Scherzer against Samardzija. Nationals $1.50 on the road, 7 the total. The teams entered Thursday tied for second in the National League at 59-42. Game and a half behind the Cubs for the National League lead. Scherzer will be pitching his 3rd straight game with at least 5 days rest. That is horrible news for this slumping Giants offense, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, look at Scherzer post-break. 14 innings pitched, 3 runs, 10 hits allowed, 17 strikeouts to only 1 walk. Those are impressive numbers. And he's averaged at least 1 strikeout per inning in each of his last 8 starts. Now, he doesn't have the win-loss record of Strasburg, but he's pitched just as well as Washington's ace. And I'm telling you, this is a Giants team. They are slumping in every possible way right now.
Yep.
And a lot of it has to do with their own starting pitching. I mean,
sure.
They wanted to add another pitcher before the trade deadline. There aren't a whole lot of good options out there.
Well, they're talking about getting Shields. Think about that. Because actually he's picked well in a couple games that there's not a lot of guys out there. You're right. So they need Samardzija to step up, and I don't know if he can do it, which the slumping offense puts more pressure on the starting pitchers. Here's Samardzija, this graphic, the last 2 seasons. Innings pitched 242. He's 20-19. His ERA is 4.68. His FIP is 4.27. Maybe he's just a below-average pitcher, Teddy, and nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, I'm not convinced there's a lot more to Jeff Samardzija than those numbers actually show. And again, you look at the decline, let's call it as pop. The strikeouts per inning and the swinging strike percentage. Every year since 2012, those numbers have steadily declined for Jeff Samardzija. And of course, he's had 3 straight seasons of 210-plus innings. He's at 128 already this year. He might wear down and get worse instead of getting better. I mean, at least the lineup got some help. They picked up Eduardo Nunez from the Twins, and he's put up some monster numbers of like 296 for the season, 12 homers, 47 ribbies, and 27 stolen base. I'll give him a spark at the top. But I'll be honest, Paulie, we talked about the Giants as being the team that the Cubs would be in, would be hardest for the Cubs to beat.
Yeah.
Right now, the Dodgers have to be considered the favorite in the NL West. San Fran is Mad Bum, Cueto, and nothing.
I can't go there. I think you're going too far there. I think they'll figure it out. They're going through a tough slump. But still, with Mad Bum and Cueto, I'll take my chances. And then who knows what's going to happen with Kershaw, although the Dodgers could make a big move at the deadline. Game number 2, liveoddssportsbookreview.com. Huge series from Toronto. Huge. Orioles and the Blue Jays. Gossman against Estrada. Blue Jays $1.39 the total. Orioles with a 2-game lead in the East over Toronto. And maybe they got thrown out of kilter with this 1-game trip makeup game in Minnesota, which they lost. It would impact the fielders, but not Gossman. They've asked him to step up in the second half. So far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, Gossman flew ahead of the team. It's not like he had to make that trip out to Minnesota. That's what the starting pitchers do when they're going in the first game of the next series. But let's think back. Remember that really awkward 1-game trip that the Pirates made to Colorado?
Yes.
What was that? It had to be June, I think it was, beginning of June. And it threw that team off killer. It was like 2 weeks they were messed up. They were messed up that whole weekend series and moving forward. And I didn't like the way the Orioles played yesterday. I didn't like the way they looked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that this trip isn't going, that 1-game trip, and maybe it's no big deal, but maybe it is. So it's something worth paying attention to over the course of the next couple of days. Now, look, the lead story again, Baltimore, 16 straight unders. Jimenez, it didn't matter.
I know.
Throw Baldo out there, it'll still go under.
Yeah, and they're struggling offensively struggling. Yep, no doubt.
Well, that's just it. They only scored 42 runs in those 16 games. They haven't scored more than 5 runs in any game during this span. So you say, wow, this team's only scored 42 runs in 16 games. Well, yeah, they're 9-7 in those games because the pitching has been so good. And not just the starting pitching, it's been the bullpen too. Gossman since the break, he's got 2 starts, 13 innings, worked 13.2 innings, giving up 2 runs, 10 hits, 13 strikeouts, so a strikeout per inning. Now, he did throw a career-high 116 pitches versus the Indians in his last start, but as you mentioned, he's had 5 days off for each of his last 2 starts, and he gets them again here.
Yeah, so this offense is struggling. They're not going to get any help from Toronto with this huge series as their top starters are ready to go. You get Sanchez and Stroman over the weekend. It's Estrada tonight. He's only 5-4, but he's got a 2.94 ERA. He has not allowed more than 4 earned runs in any start, and he's allowed 3 or less in 15 of 17 in 10 straight.
Yeah, no one's talking about him.
No, they're not.
And again, the markets aren't excited or as excited about Estrada as they are about some of the other guys on that Blue Jay staff, namely, as you mentioned, Stroman and Sanchez. But look at that consistency. 3 runs or less in 15 out of 17, 10 straight. I wonder here, though, if there's some rust for Estrada. This is only his 2nd start since July 2nd. A full week since that one. Of course, he pitched well in a 2-1 loss to Seattle at home. But he spent the All-Star break on the DL with a bad back, and now he's had another full week off. But it's worth noting, not only has Estrada been really good, he's been really good against a very tough schedule. There's 92 pitchers in baseball at 100 innings or more so far this season. And at Marco Estrada, number 4 in difficulty of batters faced when you look at opposing hitters' OPS. Worth noting, the Blue Jays lineup is rested and their bullpen fully rested to go behind Marco Estrada.
All right, training camps are here. NFL Deep Dive, Hall of Fame games, some preseason numbers coming up, and the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy. Training camps, Hall of Fame game, August 7th, and first preseason right around the corner. Great tweet by SBR Picks, at SBR Picks. Since 2000, the under in Week 1 of the Hall of Fame games are 60% when the total is 35 or higher, and usually it's sloppy football and a ton of flags early, Teddy.
Oh, yeah, and especially the Hall of Fame game. And I want to talk about the Hall of Fame game on today's show because, like we said, we will be dark next week. We're taking 1 week off. Season 2 will begin the day after the Hall of Fame game. That is Monday, August 8th. So let's talk about the Hall of Fame game right here. And here's a great tweet. And again, we're not talking about a small sample size here. We're talking about since the year 2000. Hall of Fame game, week 1 of the preseason, do tend to go under, and especially when you have totals that are slightly higher. You're not going to see any 35s in the regular season unless it's a monsoon or an ice storm or something like that. In the preseason, you see it all the time. And look at this graphic right here. The recent Hall of Fame games. Nothing but unders. 2010, the Cowboys 16-7. That total was 33.5. stayed under by double digits. 2011 was canceled with a lockout. 2012, again, you have a 17-10 final. Total stays well under 37. 2013, we had an over. Cowboys 24, Dolphins 20. That total was only 33. But the only reason that game went over was like one of those crazy last 10 minutes. It's rare in a preseason game, but you saw 24 points scored, back and forth, pinball up the field in those final minutes. That's the only reason and the only over that I'm going to talk about in recent Hall of Fame games. It happens, but not very often. 2014, 30 points scored. 2015, 17 points scored. Those games stay well under the total of 36.5 each year. So, it's a prevailing under trend, particularly for the Hall of Fame game. Very vanilla on offense. It's too early to know the quarterback rotations. Too early to know the coaches' game plans. I do know that the Packers' backup quarterback, Brett Hundley, was as good as anybody in the NFL. He put up monster stats last preseason, but that was last preseason. Right now, we're looking at pick and 36 for the Hall of Fame game on August 7th between the Colts and the Packers. It's worth noting one more thing. The last 2 years, Hall of Fame game has seen the total get bet up on game day, not get bet down.
I talked to one of my contacts today, and I get most of my preseason picks from, and I know he does a lot of reading. He said he doesn't get involved till week 2 of the preseason because that's when the coaches come out, game plans in, who's going to play, rotation, all that is set. So I certainly respect him there. But when you're talking about making money in the preseason, what does the coach want to do? Do some guys want to go out and do well, play well? Do the games matter? They don't give a shit. You remember Marv Levy in Buffalo. You saw what happened last year in Dallas. The same thing will probably happen this year. Just don't get anybody hurt. Here's some good numbers on what these teams have done under certain coaches the last few years.
Well, yeah. Again, it's Colts-Packers. The Colts 67% unders in the preseason the last 3 years under Pagano. 2015, 3-1. 2014, 2-2. 2013, 3-1. So they have been certainly trending under in August. And the Packers, their preseason opener, has gone under in each of the last 4 years. But I'm going to strongly disagree with your contact when you start talking about week 2 of the preseason. I'm a nuance believer, okay? I like to read between the lines of what coaches are saying and what coach speak there is. Okay. The other thing I'm looking for in August, this is the number one thing I'm looking for, cluster injuries. Team got cluster injuries in the secondary, guess what? They're going to lose. Team got cluster injuries at wide receiver, guess what? They're going to lose. Team's got cluster injuries on the offensive line, guess what? They're going to lose. I really look for teams with particular units and key units. Secondary, receiving core, offensive, defensive lines are 1, 2, 3, 4 in that regard. And that's what I'm looking for. You can make money with that in week 1, believe me. It's very doable. And when you get the nuances of coach speak and what they're saying and what they're not saying, and not something that comes overnight. But I've been handicapping preseason, since 1998. And I love preseason football, Paul. I know you do too.
Yep, we make money every year.
The coaches tell you what they're going to do.
Absolutely. They'll tell you what the game plan and everything. All right, so we went through every NFL team. You can check those out, the team previews at sbrpicks.com. Now it's time to go through Teddy's full list of leans here. About half the league. We'll start with some overs. And what do you think of the Bears 7.5?
Yeah, Bears have to be an over lean. When you look at John Fox's track record in year number 2, you sure as hell ain't betting Chicago under.
A lot of professional money on Jacksonville. Are you buying the hype 7.5?
I can only play over with the Jags. I'll tell you what, when you look at talent upgrade from one year to the next, not many teams acquired more than Jacksonville between last season at this time and this year.
We like this one a lot. Vikings over 9.5. 11 wins last year with a 29th ranked offense. They're only going to get better this year.
I would think so. Bridgewater now in year 3, and boy, they spent a lot of money and draft choices to make that offensive line a unit of strength instead of a unit of weakness like it was a year before. Even
with a lot of injuries and lousy quarterback play, the Texans still made the playoffs. Now they get Osweiler, 8.5 the total.
Yeah, and the Texans have, in my mind, it's not even close. They've got the best defense in that division. Ask them to finish above 500. Probably not too much to ask.
The Chargers at 7.
I think San Diego defensively is really good. Certainly on paper, they look really good, and they weren't very good defensively last year. And, of course, let's be real. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Chargers have the best quarterback in that division, and they're lined as the team with the lowest win total in that division. That doesn't mesh in my world.
Lovey's out. Dirk Cutter in. Buccaneers 7.
Well, let's see. Lovey's out. That's worth at least 2 wins. Uh, and of course, Tampa had monster stats last year. They really did. They had the stats of a team that was supposed to win 8 or 9 games. I think they could easily get to that level this year.
Unders, a lot of professional money on the under here. The Broncos, 9.5.
Well, of course, Denver was a very fortuitous team last year when it came to A, winning close games, B, getting defensive scores, and C, winning without a good quarterback. They don't have a good quarterback again this year, and that is clearly going to be problematic because I don't think the defense can be quite as good as it was a year ago.
If I'm wrong, I'll let you know. I can't believe the Rams are going to win 8 games. Yesterday I saw under 7.5 minus 170.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of Rams under money. The 7 now the prevailing number on LA. And of course, we're talking about a team that hasn't finished at 500, not even at 500 in the last decade. And of course, now a West Coast team traveling east, not once, not twice, 4 times this year they're going to play 10 o'clock Eastern time games. And guess what? They've never been the West Coast team traveling east before. I think there will be some problems with LA in terms of that travel situation.
I don't see the talent on this team. I don't like Tannehill, new coach, Miami 7.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, installing new systems on offense, installing new systems on defense, and a squad that, let's be real, they fell apart last year. I'm not convinced their chemistry is repaired. Miami under 7's don't make them look.
Could be the worst team in the NFC, 49ers, 5.5.
Could be. I don't think it's close. Who else is who's going to give the 49ers a run for their money for worst team in the NFC? Chip Kelly's got a lot of rebuilding to do.
Colts, 9.5.
Yeah, Andrew Luck certainly is a quarterback who, in general, you probably want your money on more than against. But when you look at the makeup of Indy's roster, let's put it this way. Pro Football Focus ranked them as, I think, 28th in talent out of the 32 NFL teams.
Yeah, like the Bengals under 9.5. Hugh Jackson gone. They lose a couple key wide receivers.
Yeah, Andy Dalton finished number 2 in the NFL in QBR last year. I don't think Dalton's the second best quarterback in the league. And as you mentioned, Jackson and 2 key receivers, 2 guys who got paid like number 1s, all skipped town.
Jets at 8.
Yeah, and even with Fitzpatrick signed, when you talk about strength of schedule, the Jets and the next team we're going to talk about, the Washington Redskins at 7.5, those 2 teams have the the 2 biggest, I should say, strength of schedule increases between last year and this year. Jets and Redskins, both much, much tougher slates in 2016 compared to 2015.
We don't like the quarterback position. We don't like who they have at quarterback. We don't like the head coach. Eagles at 7.
Yeah, Philly's a team without a single unit on the roster that's above average. Not on offense, not on defense. Throwing a new coaching staff and a change of strategy, hard to expect the Eagles to win 8 games.
And the Ravens, 8.5.
Yeah, 31 new faces on Baltimore's roster. I'm not convinced they've got a ton of playmakers. And we're talking about a team that had a disaster season last year after an extended stretch of excellence. I'm not convinced Baltimore bounces back strong.
Yes, all right. Very good. Play of the day coming up. Listen, we're proud of what we've accomplished here. We were getting a lot of views. Views went up big time, especially when we got into the NBA playoffs. And I agree with you. Listen, Colin Cowherd says this, and I agree with him. Baseball's a regional sport. So the fact that we're getting any views during baseball season and July, the slowest month in sports, thanks for watching. And now we come back August 8th for football. I can't wait.
Yeah, look, season 1, this is our finale. We've built an audience. I hope we've built some respect, some loyalty, and some appreciation. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to develop a sports center for gamblers that has a big enough audience to attract some advertisers and generate some revenue. So please, if you like this show, help us help you. Retweet us, watch us, tell your friends about us, and remember, when we come back, yeah, baby, it's football season!
Yes, we'll have a game in the books. Money time, play of the day. Hall of Fame game, Sunday, August 7th, Packers and Colts. Under 36, we ran down the history there. And just get out of the game healthy. Don't get anybody hurt. 2-scoop vanilla offense, baby. Run the ball, get out of there, and move on to the next game. Under 36, Packers and the Colts. Thanks for watching. SportsBit will talk to you Monday, August 8th. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.